All right, family, this is Pastor Barrett on the most sanctified bus in America. We're joined today by Bishop Jackson, the AME 6th Episcopal AME District Church. He's also the board chairman of the Morris Brown College, my alma mater, the one that I love. I still say I bleed purple. I'm so excited to have him here today. So, Bishop, before we get started, just want to say hello to you, welcome you here. We're about to get started here with the conversation. We are live right now on the Black Church Rocks bus. And so tell us a little about who you are. And you know, I told you were a giant. He tried to tell me he was a midget. This man is playing. This is a big man of the faith. He has a large responsibility. He oversees the church and a university, college at the same time, and a number of other things. But in your own words, who are you, Bishop?
Well, first of all, let me say I'm happy to be with you tonight. I'm delighted to be the bishop of the AME churches in Georgia. We've got about 500 churches in Georgia, and we are excited about the opportunity the Lord has presented to us for ministry and, in fact, for community engagement. We are strong advocates for social justice, and so I'm just delighted to be the bishop of the district.
Do a double duty. and
that's a lot to talk about too, because
that's a lot to talk about, Bishop, because being over the 500 some odd churches, that must keep you very busy, but also puts you in a pivotal role here in the state of Georgia. We are here, Black Church Rocks is here on the behalf of the Black Church PAC, is to help get out the vote here in Georgia. And you having such a strong lay of the land as a leader, how have you seen the campaigns going so far? How's this election going so far for the U.S. Senate seat here in the runoff?
Well, the odds of the nation are on Georgia. In fact, around the world. Georgia really has the chance to really define the presidency of Joe Biden. If Georgia is able to elect 2 Democratic senators, it changes who controls the United States Senate. It will either make it easier. If they don't elect 2 Democratic senators, it probably would make it more difficult for the president-elect to get his legislative agenda through the Congress. In addition to that, Georgia has a chance to establish itself as a true battleground state.
Mm-hmm.
The demographics in Georgia from 2016 to 2020 have drastically changed. And so I believe now whoever wants to win Georgia is going to have to come to Georgia and do the work.
That's right. They're going to have to do the work. You're absolutely right. Now, the work is being done by the voters right now. As of Sunday, 32.1% of the voters have been Black and during the runoff and early voting, compared to 27.8%. So Blacks are turning out at a higher rate. And also 901,000 votes have already been cast in person, and another 569,000, almost 570,000 votes have been cast in the mail. That's about 1.5 million people. We're looking at a historic turnout. So why do you think Black folks are turning out at a higher number than they did during the general election?
Well, you know, when I was assigned to Georgia in 2016, I said to the Blacks in Georgia that I was angry with them. I was angry because the current president won Georgia by 4.5 percentage points, and yet the Black turnout was low. And yet I am today very proud of the Blacks in Georgia. In November, we surprised the nation. We had a huge turnout, and it's that turnout which flipped Georgia from being red to being blue, and which really has made Georgia a battleground state. And I think in this runoff, the outcome is going to be determined by turnout. Whoever turns out their voters are the ones who are going to win this election. And so I am pleased that thus far in the runoff, the Black turnout again has so far shown to be phenomenal. And I'm excited about that because usually in the runoff, the black turnout is always heavily diminished. But I'm hoping and I'm believing that in this runoff, we're going to prove people wrong again, and that on January the 5th, because of black voters, Georgia will again surprise the nation.
Man, that's what we want so much here. The Black Church Rocks. I think that there's actually $457 million in television ads. So the vote from different campaigns and different parties and allies of different candidates. We here at Black Church PAC, our television commercials start running real soon as well, right after Christmas here and throughout the state. But what's going to get people to go out to vote? You have 500 and some odd churches. What do you think will lead them to getting their souls to the polls? Anything in particular?
But you know, one of the peculiar things about blacks is the more you tell us we can't do something, the more determined it makes us to do it.
Yes.
And so one of the things which I think is going to help us with the turnout this election is that already, because of the way blacks turned out by absentee balloting and by early voting, already there are efforts being made to make it more difficult to vote by absentee ballot. Already is trying to put in place new laws which will make it more difficult, particularly for blacks and voters of color to vote, which is nothing more than a means of trying to say we've got to find a way to keep the black vote down. I don't think that's going to work in this runoff, and I can assure you that when the next session of the legislature begins in January, there's going to be one whale of a fight if they believe they're going to now change the laws. And I remind people it was a Republican legislature which put in place the current laws which exist today. Apparently those laws worked for them back then. They may not be working for them now, so now they want to change the laws again. But my thing is, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and it's definitely not broke.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So are there any initiatives that the 6th Episcopal District is taking on right now, or are there some churches that you can highlight that are doing a tremendous job of galvanizing people to the polls?
Yes, there are a number of issues. One, I'm extremely pleased because the AME Church in Georgia led the effort among the faith community to get a hate crimes law passed. Georgia was one of only 4 states in the nation which did not have a hate crimes law. And we pressured the legislature and the governor. And so this year, Governor Kemp signed the law which the state legislature passed, where now there is a hate crimes law in Georgia. But that's not the end of what we need to do. Now we also need to go to work and change some other laws. One of them we need to change is this idea of stand your ground, which again has worked to the detriment of blacks. Another law we need to change is this law as it relates to citizens' arrest. In fact, Ahmaud Arbery, who was executed down in Brunswick, Georgia, they called themselves making a citizen's arrest. There was no legitimate basis at all for this arrest. It was nothing more than a blatant racist attack and execution. And that's why this law dealing with citizens' arrest needs to be repealed and abolished. So we're going to be working on that this forthcoming legislative session. And of course, it's not a state issue, but we're going to be pressing, especially the 2 new senators who we elect, to really push for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, because when the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act and the Shelby versus Holder case, is what opened the doors for a lot of these states to put in place these rules which seek to suppress black votes. So those are the issues we've got to work on.
That's a heavy piece of legislative work that I'm sure people are glad you're doing. Now, tell us a little bit about the John Lewis piece, the Voting Rights Act. Why do we find that imperative to go after that now in 2020, 2021?
Well, in fact, when the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in the Shelby versus Holder case, its intent was that those primarily southern states which needed federal consent to change their voting rules now do not need federal consent. They can do whatever they want. For example, in Georgia, one of the things you have is a perfect match law. So if you do not dot an I, or if your name has a hyphen and you don't put the hyphen in, they will declare that this is not a perfect match and they will not register you to vote. And again, that primarily and unfairly impacts blacks and voters of color. And so it's these kind of laws which states have now put in place to make it more difficult and to suppress the vote. For example, in the 2018 governor's election, Georgia dropped more than 500,000 people from its voting rolls. And in fact, for the November election, Georgia cut more than 200,000 voters from the rolls. And it's been shown now that many of those voters should not have been dropped because they were in fact legitimately qualified to vote.
So do you think, since you're on this, do you think that Stacey Abrams would have been governor if it were not for those votes to have been dropped from the rolls?
If it had not been for the voter suppression, Stacey Abrams would be governor of Georgia today. And I remind people, to show you, they've tried to tell me that this is a new Georgia. Well, the fact of the matter is the current governor was the Secretary of State during that election. And you would figure that since he was a candidate, that he would have recused himself because the Secretary of State's office is responsible for governing the elections. So how do you govern an election in which you are also the candidate? And it was his decision to drop more than 500,000 people from the voter rolls in Georgia. Stacey Abrams is the duly elected governor of Georgia. However, she is not legitimately governor because of this voter suppression.
Do you think that Stacey and I were in school together at the AUC at the same time? We both served as student body presidents of our institutions at the same time. I'm a Stacey Abrams fan to the end. But do you think that she should remain and come back and run again in 2 years, or should she think to do something else for Georgia, or is Georgia just, or is the United States more so on her side? What do you think Stacey Abrams should do?
Stacey Abrams is a dear friend. I've already said to her privately what I'm going to say publicly. I did not want Stacey Abrams to run for the United States Senate. I want Stacey Abrams in 2022 to be the Democratic candidate for governor of Georgia. And it's my intention to do everything possible to help her be the next governor of this state.
Well, I think with people like you behind her, she's a sure win. I think she's a sure win. I mean, it's but the way the voting is going right now for this Senate campaign, regardless of what the turnout is come January 5th, I think 2022 is the year of Stacey Abrams becoming the governor of this state. And it's going to put some things. And then by then, we can actually then say that the state is blue. I don't count the state as blue just yet. The president-elect won by 12,000 and about 67 votes or so. So it's not quite blue just yet. I think when January 5th comes and we elect these two senators, I think we're blue then. Until said time, we're transitioning. That's my take on it. But it's going to happen. So where are the places in the state that outside of Atlanta, outside of Fulton County, outside of Cobb County, outside of DeKalb County, where are the counties or the cities where we need a great turnout of black folk to make a difference?
Well, I agree with you. I don't think Georgia is a blue state. I do think right now it's probably a purple state. The demographics of the state have changed dramatically. More people are moving into the state, and a large number of those who are moving in are not only blacks, but also people of color. And I think that's what's helping to change the demographics. But in terms of the voting, I think we've got to do a better job of getting our brothers and sisters out to vote who live in the southern part of the state, down in places like Columbus. I think Savannah's doing well, but down in places like Donaldsonville, in the southernmost parts of this state, there are a lot of blacks, and we need to make sure we get them out to vote. As great as the black turnout was in November, there was still a large number of blacks who did not turn out to vote. And so one of the things I'm hoping will happen in this Senate race, and there's been a lot of effort focused on the southern part of the state to get them out. And I think that's got to be a continuous effort, get them registered, and then to get them out to vote. And I'm hoping that January 5th will show that we've done a better job of reaching out to that part of the state. 60% of the voters in the state of Georgia are concentrated in Atlanta and its suburbs. So we've got to do a better job with the other 40% in the state of Georgia.
Yes, with Biden only winning by 12,000 votes, that's a narrow margin of victory here. And so your community, Savannah, your community, Valdosta, your community, Albany, can make a difference in this race. I mean, you're viable. I mean, we can be the deciding votes to determine who win this runoff on January 5th. And so that's important. So we at the Black Church PAC, Black Church Rocks Bus, we've been to only focus on the southern states. So next 27th, I think we're in Columbus, and then we're in Augusta, the 28th of December, and in Albany. We're going back south again to redo some of the cities we did with Black Voters Matter when we first came here about 2 weeks ago. We've been hitting the ground running, and we're only focusing on those hamlets, those villages, those communities, those smaller towns and cities where we are as a people, Black people, can make a difference. I just found out that Henry County is about 60% African American. Who knew that was the case? So how has the influx, the migration here in the Atlanta area impacted the AME church, the churches that you serve?
Well, I'm extremely pleased with the AME church because for the November election, we had about 100 of our people scattered around the state to make sure we got out the vote. And so I'm very pleased for this runoff. We have again deployed people around the state to get people out to vote. And also let me comment on another thing. Joe Biden's victory in Georgia was very slim, about 11,000 some votes. And yet as slim as it was for Republicans, it was huge because they just automatically assumed that Georgia was going to stay red. They presumed it had been red all these years. There was no way it was going to change. So while it may have been 11,000 votes, to them, it seemed like it was a couple 100,000 votes. And so for this runoff, again, if we do our work, and be frank with you, I think what is going to encourage a lot more blacks to vote is the fact that they saw where their vote made the difference in November. And I think when you look at the issues, I think the attacks on Raphael Warnock and his ministry and Ebenezer Church, I think that also is going to generate a greater turnout among blacks. And I think the Black church has a responsibility to make sure that our congregations and their families and our communities get out to vote. I tell the AMEs it's a sin not to vote. I think not voting is a theological problem. And so I'm trying to save folk, and getting them saved means they also got to vote.
Amen. I agree wholeheartedly with that statement. So do you don't pastor a church anymore when you're bishop, correct?
No, I don't. Almost every week I'm in a church in some different part of the state. And I want you to know I have discovered that Georgia is a big state. They want the bishop to come to everybody's church. I mean, it is a big state. So thank God I have a driver, and usually while he's driving, I'm in the back taking a nap. So I'll be ready to go when we arrive.
That's nice. That's nice. So in your travels to the different, I should bring back on your travels. What do you see the energy? How's the energy of the people as it relates to when you're there on Sunday mornings? Are they excited about this election? Are they talking about it? Is it something on their minds? Or just how are they feeling?
I am extremely pleased because everywhere I go, blacks are excited about this election. Everywhere I go. And one of the things which really has me more pleased is because they are excited because of the issues that affect them and their communities. For example, in the midst of this coronavirus, it does matter to them that both Purdue and Laughlin did not support this in the beginning, this second stimulus bill, which would provide funds for people who are hurting. They're unemployed. They don't have food. They have needs to be met. So that has gotten the attention of blacks. Then as it relates to the whole issue of health care, Republicans have spent the last 4 years trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act known as Obamacare, which includes covering people with pre-existing conditions. That is an issue which has really impacted blacks. And I remind blacks, if you are black and living in the United States, you got a pre-existing condition. So black folk are being impacted by the issues that are affecting them, and it's causing them to come out to vote.
On that note, talking about healthcare, how do you see this vaccine? What are you saying? I mean, your voice is heard loud. What are you saying as results about the vaccine? Are you recommending people take it? Are you taking a different set? Pastor E. Dewey Smith said when we were at his church that he's not telling anybody, he's not saying one way or the other what people should do, but he's being cautious in him personally. How do you view this vaccine for the coronavirus right now?
Let me put it this way. I've seen the impact this coronavirus is having on black folk. To show you what my position is, if Dr. Fauci walked in here today with a needle, I'd roll up my sleeve and tell him, give it to me now. And so I encourage every black to go on and get this vaccine. There's no need for us to continue to go around in fear and anxiety. Take the vaccine. All I know is Biden is taking it, Fauci is taking it, Secretary of Health Azar is taking it, Barack Obama, George Bush, Bill Clinton said they would take it. If all of them can take it, then I think we ought to be willing to take it.
All right. Now, why do you think black folks are hesitant? What can we say to the black community to have them take the virus? I mean, I'm a little hesitant too, but that's a whole nother issue. But what can we say to people?
Well, historically, with Tuskegee and everything else, there is reason for blacks to be skeptical. And again, just as I said between Clinton, Bush, and Obama, and Fauci and Biden, if they didn't take it, then I wouldn't take it. But the fact that they've stepped out and taken it, I have confidence that this vaccine is something that blacks can take. And my other point simply is, at the way this pandemic is going now, where 3,000 people a day are dying, 300,000 a day are getting infected, I think the only two options are take the vaccine or don't take the vaccine and die. So I think it's that simple.
That's a strong statement. That's people need to hear that. People really need to hear that. So now, I'm excited about this part here. You are president of my alma mater. I was pleased to go to Morris Brown College. I was a rebel rouser when I was there. But I was a student leader. Loved this campus. Fought for it. I still bleed purple. Matter of fact, when I was student body president, we fought to have our Africana Studies program there because the students wanted it, and I was the first one to get a degree in Africana Studies in Morris Brown College, and also got a political science degree too. I got 2 degrees from there, so I love my institution. Did 140 some odd hours of studies at Morris Brown College. Where are we going with that great institution? And then
Well,
to answer that, why is Morris Brown important? Why don't we just merge with another university or college?
well, I think historically Morris Brown is important because it's the first black or historical HBCU in the city of Atlanta. So that's first of all why it's important. Second, it's important to me because Morris Brown College was actually started by the AME Church. It was founded in Big Bethel Church on Auburn Avenue here in Atlanta. So those are number three. And number 3, when I went to seminary here in Atlanta at ITC, around the corner from Morris Brown had the largest student body enrollment of any other institution in the Atlanta University Center. And I
Right.
remember that campus being a center of life and vitality. And it provided an opportunity to get an education to so many students who could not afford it. In fact, one of the things which is really both frustrated, but yet also motivated me as it relates to Morris Brown, is that even though Morris Brown is not currently accredited, every year since I've been the chairman, the last 4 years, we've had about 4,000 students apply to Morris Brown College every year. The only reason they don't come, they're not able to get financial aid. But I've got good news. Morris Brown has applied for its accreditation. Morris Brown is now in a stage where the accreditation agency is coming to the campus of Morris Brown College the first week in January of 2021. And I believe Morris Brown is on course to do what no other institution in the history of the United States has done. Morris Brown has lost its accreditation about 20 years ago. It's my belief that by the middle of 2021, April, May of 2021, Morris Brown College will again have its accreditation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yesterday I was on campus and I was going to drop off some T-shirts to the administration building to the president and the staff, and I saw a candidate there, John Ossoff, there on campus, and they were doing an HBCU celebration. And from what the president said, it was exciting for him to show up, but he was able to speak, and he was speaking in support of Morris Brown College and other HBCUs. Why do you think there needs to be a fight to strengthen and to support with financial resources HBCUs and predominantly more so Morris Brown?
Without HBCUs, we would not have as many black doctors. We would not have as many black lawyers. We would not have as many black scientists. We would not have as many black professionals as we do today. HBCUs have been the lifeline of black graduate education in the United States. And if we don't support our HBCUs, we're going to do irreparable harm to the black community, because a lot of our students, it's not that they're not qualified, but they face tremendous barriers getting into these other institutions. And I firmly believe that when you look at the whole argument of affirmative action, that real argument is not about whether or not it's fair or just. It's an attempt to keep down the number of blacks who get into those institutions. We have got to have our HBCUs.
I absolutely agree. I mean, it makes for as many medical doctors, PhDs. You know, Spelman College prepares more African American women who get their PhD than any other institution in the country. HBCUs play an intricate role in moving and advancing us forward. And so when I was in school at Morris Brown, there were over 2,600 students there. It was a large campus. It was vibrant. A lot of things were going on. It was a beautiful time and space to be there. I think the reimagined Morris Brown College will be different as we go forward, but it'll be just as significant as far as preparing people for school. I won a Woodrow Wilson Fellow from there. I went to American University from Morris Brown College and Harvard University as well. So it prepared me to be an excellent student and to compete at the highest level of academia as I go and pursued my my degrees after undergrad. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful. So, hey, Bishop, you get the last word. What do you want to talk about, Bishop? It's on you.
Well, let me just simply say again, I want to encourage everybody to get out to vote in this runoff. Right now, this runoff is a primary thing. I believe we have got to change control of the United States Senate. That's number one. Number two, I think we've got to do all we can to help the next president, Joe Biden, be an effective and successful president. The democracy that we live in is on the line. It is at risk. And I think this election, these two senators in Georgia have the opportunity to correct the course that this nation is presently going. So I just want to encourage everybody, please get out and let's vote.
All right, family, you heard it here from Bishop Jackson. He's the presiding bishop of the 6th Episcopal District, which is the state of Georgia. Some over 500 churches here in Georgia. This man has spoken. This is our leader. And let's go forward. Let's get people out and vote. Bishop, we want to thank you for stopping by the Black Church Rocks bus. The bus has been blessed. This is the most sanctified bus in America, right here in the great city of Atlanta, in the good state of Georgia. All right? Bless you.
Glad to be on this sanctified bus.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Blessings to you. God bless, family.
Thank you.
Thank you.